The crimson sunset painted the walls of the Stellar Research Institute as Celeste Ravenwood pressed her badge against the security scanner. The metallic beep echoed through the empty corridor, followed by the soft hiss of the airlock doors sliding open. She shouldn't be here after hours, especially not heading towards Section 7. But something had been calling to her for weeks now. Celeste had joined the Institute 6 months ago with dreams of advancing interspecies communication and understanding. Fresh from the academy with top honors in xenobiology, she believed she would be studying fascinating alien life forms and helping build bridges between different worlds. Instead, she found herself documenting the vital signs of what the administrators coldly referred to as Specimen 47. The restricted section stretched before her like a cathedral of steel and glass. Emergency lighting cast long shadows between the containment units, each one housing creatures from distant worlds. Most were small, harmless beings kept for research purposes, but Unit 7 was different. It stood apart from the others, larger and more heavily fortified, surrounded by energy barriers that hummed with ominous power. Director Blackstone had made it clear during orientation that Section 7 was absolutely forbidden to junior researchers. The specimen inside was classified as extremely dangerous, requiring only senior staff interaction under strict protocols. Yet Celeste found herself drawn to it night after night, unable to explain the magnetic pull she felt. As she approached the massive containment unit, her heart began to race. Through the reinforced transparent walls, she could see movement in the shadows. The creature inside was enormous, at least 30 feet in length, with scales that seemed to shift between deep emerald and midnight black. 2 amber eyes, each the size of dinner plates, watched her approach with an intelligence that made her breath catch. This was no mere animal. Every instinct she had developed as a xenobiologist screamed that she was looking at a sentient being, not a specimen to be studied. "Hello," she whispered, knowing how foolish it sounded. "I know you can understand me." The great head tilted slightly, and those golden eyes blinked once, slowly, deliberately. Celeste felt a strange tingling sensation in her mind, like someone was gently knocking at the door of her consciousness. Her hand moved almost without her permission, pressing against the cool surface of the containment wall. A moment her palm made contact, the world exploded into sensation. Images flooded her mind, memories that were not her own. She saw vast mountain ranges under alien skies, cities carved from living crystal, and beings of incredible beauty soaring through clouds of stardust. The voice that filled her thoughts was deep and resonant, tinged with centuries of sadness. "You are not like the others, young one. Your heart burns with compassion, where there's hold only cold curiosity." Celeste gasped, stumbling backward, but she couldn't break the connection. "You can speak? You're talking to me? I have tried to reach many minds over the long years of my imprisonment. Yours is the first to answer." The mental voice grew stronger, more focused. "I am called Draconis Thornwick, last of the royal house. Of the Golden Flame? And you, brave child, what name do you carry?" "Celeste Ravenwood," she managed, her voice barely a whisper. "How long have you been here?" "Time moves strangely in this place. By your world's measure, perhaps 3 centuries. I have watched generations of your kind come and go, studying me like a curious artifact while never seeing the being trapped within." The magnitude of what she was learning hit her like a physical blow. 300 years of imprisonment. 300 years of being treated like a mindless beast when he was clearly an intelligent, feeling being. The injustice of it made her heart ache. "Why are you here? What did you do?" Pain lanced through the telepathic connection, so intense that Celeste cried out, "I trusted where I should have been wary. I loved where I should have remained guarded. My own people betrayed me to your kind, believing it would bring peace between our species." Draconis moved closer to the barrier, his massive form coiling with fluid grace. Close Celeste could see the intricate patterns of his scales, the way they caught and reflected light like living gems. Despite his size and obvious power, there was a gentleness in his movements that spoke of careful control. "You should not be here," he continued, though there was warmth rather than warning. In his mental voice, "If they discover our connection, you will face punishment. Your director Blackstone has little tolerance for those who break his rules. I don't care about the rules, Celeste said, surprised by her own vehemence. This is wrong, keeping you locked up like this, treating you like you're nothing more than a research subject. You're a person, a being with thoughts and feelings and rights. Few of your species would agree with that assessment, and few of my species are worth knowing. She pressed both hands against the barrier now, feeling the energy field tingle against her skin. I'm going to find a way to help you. Draconis was quiet for a long moment, and Celeste could sense him studying her through their link. When he finally responded, his mental voice was soft, with something that might have been hope. Why would you risk yourself for someone you have only just met? The answer came to her without hesitation, though it frightened her with its intensity. Because looking at you doesn't feel like meeting a stranger. It feels like coming home. The silence that followed was filled with 1,000 unspoken emotions. Through their connection, Celeste could feel Dracona's wonder at her words, mixed with a longing so deep it threatened to overwhelm her. You speak of things that should not be possible, he said finally. The bond between our species was severed long ago. The bridges were burned, the connections forbidden. Maybe some connections are too strong to break forever. A soft chime echoed through the section, the automated system announcing the shift change. Celeste reluctantly stepped back from the barrier, though breaking the physical contact felt like tearing away a part of herself. I have to go, she whispered. But I'll come back. I promise. Celeste. Her name and his mental voice sent shivers down her spine. Be careful. There are those here who would destroy us both if they knew what we have begun. As she hurried back through the empty corridors, Celeste's mind raced with questions and possibilities. She had stumbled into something far bigger than a simple case of animal cruelty. Draconis spoke of betrayal, of ancient connections between their species, of bonds that transcended the physical realm. Whatever the truth was, she intended to uncover it. And whatever the cost, she would find a way to free the magnificent being, who had somehow captured her heart in the space of a single conversation. Behind her, in the depths of Section 7, Draconis settled back into the shadows of his prison. For the first time in 3 centuries, the crushing weight of despair had lifted slightly from his soul. The young woman named Celeste had awakened something in him that he had thought lost forever. Hope, and perhaps, just perhaps, the first stirrings of a love that could shake the very foundations of both their worlds. 3 weeks had passed since Celeste first spoke with Draconis, and their nightly meetings had become the highlight of her existence. Each conversation deepened their connection, revealing layers of intelligence, wisdom, and gentle humor that made her heart race. But tonight felt different. The air in Section 7 seemed charged with electricity, and Draconis appeared more agitated than usual. Something troubles you, Celeste observed, pressing her hands against the familiar, cool surface of the containment barrier. The moment their connection established, waves of anxiety flooded through their link. The facility's energy, patterns have changed, Draconis replied, his mental voice tight with concern. They are preparing something. I can sense increased activity in the upper levels, and there are new minds here, minds filled with purpose and malice. Celeste's stomach clenched. She had noticed unusual activity too. Dr. Valencia, the senior researcher, had been asking pointed questions about her work patterns. Director Blackstone seemed to watch her more intently during staff meetings. And yesterday, she had caught sight of military personnel in the administrative wing. Tell me about your past, she said, settling into their usual routine of shared stories. You mentioned betrayal before. What really happened to you? Draconis was quiet for so long that Celeste wondered if he would answer. When his voice finally filled her mind, it carried the weight of centuries of pain. I was not always a prisoner, dear one. Once, I ruled the northern territories of Draconius Prime, a world your people call Kepler 4-4 to be. My kind lived in harmony with the elements, shapeshifters who could take both dragon and humanoid forms. We were ancient when your species was still learning to use fire. Images flooded through their connection. Celeste saw magnificent cities built into mountainsides, with spiraling towers that reached toward twin suns. She witnessed dragons in human form, beautiful beings with otherworldly features. Living alongside their fully draconic kin in perfect harmony, we were approached by early human explorers. Draconis continued. They spoke of peace, of cultural exchange, of mutual benefits. I was young for my kind, barely 4 centuries old, and I believed in the possibility of friendship between our species. What went wrong? Love. The word carried such bitterness that Celeste winced. I fell in love with their ambassador, a human woman named Victoria Sterling. She was brilliant, passionate, and seemed to return my feelings. For 2 years, we worked together to establish formal relations between our worlds. Celeste felt a stab of jealousy at the mention of another woman in Draconis' life, but she pushed the emotion aside. This was ancient history, and she could sense the pain it still caused him. Victoria convinced me to visit Earth as a gesture of goodwill. She said her people needed to see that dragons could be trusted, that we were not the monsters of their ancient myths. So I came, in good faith, as an ambassador of my people. And they imprisoned you instead. Worse, Victoria was part of the plan from the beginning. Everything between us had been a lie, designed to make me vulnerable. The moment I arrived on Earth, I was drugged, bound with chains forged from a metal that disrupts our natural abilities, and locked away. They told my people I had died in an accident, preventing any rescue attempts. The betrayal was so profound that Celeste felt tears streaming down her face. Through their bond, she experienced echoes of Draconis anguish, the crushing realization that everything he had believed about love and trust had been false. "I'm so sorry," she whispered. "No one should endure that kind of betrayal. The irony is bitter, is it not? I was imprisoned because they feared what I might become, yet their treatment ensured I became the very thing they dreaded. 3 centuries of rage and hatred have filled my heart with darkness. Not darkness," Celeste said firmly. "If you were truly consumed by hatred, you wouldn't be capable of the gentleness you show me. You wouldn't have waited so patiently for someone who could hear you." As if summoned by her words, Draconis moved closer to the barrier. His massive form coiled with fluid grace, bringing his great head level with where she stood. Those golden eyes, larger than her entire face, gazed at her with an intensity that made her heart skip. "You see something in me that I thought lost forever?" he said softly. "In your presence I remember who I was before the betrayal. You make me want to be that being again. You already are that being, you never stop being him." The warmth that flooded through their mental connection was like stepping into sunlight after years of winter. Celeste felt something shift between them, a deepening of their bond that went beyond simple telepathic communication. Her skin began to tingle, and she noticed a faint golden glow emanating from her hands where they touched the barrier. "Celeste," Draconis' mental voice carried a note of wonder and alarm. "Look at your reflection." She turned toward the polished metal wall. Panelin gasped. Her eyes, normally a deep brown, now held flecks of gold that seemed to swirl and dance like tiny flames. Her dark hair had gained subtle highlights that shimmered with an inner light. "What's happening to me?" "The bond," Draconis breathed. "It should not be possible. The barriers between our species were built to prevent exactly this. Somehow. Your soul calls to mine across every obstacle they have placed in our path." Before Celeste could respond, the section's main doors burst open. Director Blackstone strode in, flanked by 6 security guards, their weapons drawn and energy readings spiking on their scanners. "Step away from the containment unit, Miss Ravenwood," Blackstone commanded, his voice cold as Arctic wind. "Slowly, with your hands visible." Celeste's heart hammered against her ribs, but she didn't move from the barrier. Through their link, she felt Draconis' protective instincts flare to life, his massive form coiling with barely contained power. "I know what you've been doing," Blackstone continued, moving closer with predatory confidence. 3 weeks of unauthorized visits. 3 weeks of compromising our most valuable specimen. Did you really think we wouldn't notice?" "He's not a specimen," Celeste said, finding courage in her anger. "He's a sentient being, a person with rights and feelings. What you're doing here is torture." Blackstone laughed, a sound devoid of any warmth. Rights? Feelings? It's a weapon, Miss Ravenwood. A biological weapon capable of destroying entire Slash cities. The only reason it still lives is because we haven't finished extracting all of its secrets. His name is Draconis Thornwick, and he came here as an ambassador of peace. Blackstone's smile turned predatory. So, it's been talking to you. Even better. The telepathic connection will make the extraction process much more efficient. Behind the barrier, Draconis released a sound that was part roar, part keening cry of rage. The containment unit shook under the force of his fury, energy readings, spiking dangerously high. You will not harm her. His mental voice boomed, not just in Celeste's mind, but somehow reaching every person in the room. The security guards stumbled backward, clutching their heads as the psychic pressure hit them. Fascinating, Blackstone murmured, making notes on his tablet even as his men struggled to remain standing. The emotional resonance between you two is remarkable. Dr. Valencia will be thrilled to study the connection before we terminate it. Terminate, Celeste spun to face him, the golden glow around her hands growing brighter. Of course, you've been contaminated by exposure to its psychic influence. The only cure is to sever the connection permanently. Don't worry, it will be quick. Rage, unlike anything she had ever felt, flooded through Celeste. It's not just her own anger, but Draconis as well, amplified and focused through their bond. Fluorescent lights above began to flicker and spark as raw energy poured off her body. Get away from her, Draconis roared, both mentally and physically. His massive form slammed against the barrier with enough force to crack the reinforced material. Alarms began blaring throughout the facility as the containment unit registered critical damage. Sedate them both, Blackstone ordered, but his guards were still reeling from the psychic assault. Now, one guard managed to raise his weapon, aiming a tranquilizer dart at Celeste. The projectile seemed to move in slow motion as time dilated. Around her, without conscious thought, she raised her hand, and a burst of golden fire erupted from her palm, incinerating the dart in midair. The room fell silent, except for the wailing alarms. Everyone stared at Celeste in shock as flames danced. Around her fingers, without burning her? Impossible, Blackstone breathed. Humans cannot channel draconic fire. The physiological differences make it. Love makes many impossible things possible, Draconis said, his mental voice now reaching everyone present. Your kind learned that truth 3 centuries ago when you betrayed me.
Now you will learn
it again. Barriers around his containment unit began to fluctuate as Celeste's growing power interfered with their energy matrix. Cracks spread across the transparent walls like spider webs, and the humming of the force fields grew erratic. All units to Section 7, Blackstone spoke rapidly into his communicator. Code Black emergency. Specimen containment failure imminent. They're coming, Celeste said, feeling the approach of more guards through her enhanced senses. There are too many of them. Not if we stand together, Draconis replied. Trust in our bond, dear one. Trust in the connection that has grown between us. As if responding to his words, the golden light around Celeste intensified until it was almost blinding. She felt her consciousness expanding, touching Draconis' mind more fully than ever before. Through their link, she experienced memories of soaring through star-filled skies, of the exhilaration of flight, of the joy of transformation. Her body began to change. Her human form stretched and elongated as scales of midnight blue emerged along her arms and shoulders. Wings translucent, and shimmering with inner light, unfurled from her back. She was becoming something new, something that was both human and dragon, bridging the gap between their species through the power of their love. By all the stars, Draconis whispered, wonder filling his mental voice. You are magnificent. The reinforced barriers around his prison finally shattered completely, unable to contain the surge of combined power flowing between them. For the first time in 3 centuries, Draconis was free. The moment the containment barriers shattered, Draconis emerged from his prison like a force of nature unleashed. His massive form filled the section, scales gleaming with an inner fire that had been dormant for centuries. But his eyes remained, fixed on Celeste, who stood transformed between her human and dragon nature. Wings of pure starlight spread wide, Incredible, she breathed, seeing him free for the first time. Even in the emergency lighting, he was magnificent. His scales shifted between emerald and gold, and there was a regal bearing to his movements that spoke of ancient nobility. Director. Blackstone and his guards had retreated to the far wall, weapons raised but useless against the raw power filling the air. Through the facility's intercom system, orders barked and emergency protocols activated, but they seemed distant and unimportant compared to the miracle unfolding before them. "You have to choose, Celeste," Draconis said, his mental voice urgent but gentle. "The transformation has begun, but it is not yet complete. You can return to your human form and live the life you knew before, or you can embrace what we have. Become together." "What would that mean?" she asked, though part of her already knew the answer. "To complete the bond means accepting all that I am, all that we could become together. You would gain the ability to take full dragon form, to live for millennia instead of decades, to soar between the stars themselves. But you would also leave your old life behind forever." Heavy footsteps echoed from the corridors as reinforcements approached. The choice would have to be made quickly. But as Celeste looked into Dracona's golden eyes, she realized there was no choice at all. Her heart had already decided weeks ago during their first conversation. "I choose you," she said without hesitation. "I choose us." The words had barely left her lips when the world exploded into sensation. Energy coursed between them like lightning, binding their souls together in ways that transcended physical reality. Celeste felt her consciousness expand beyond human limitations, touching memories and experiences that spanned centuries. Through Dracona's eyes, she saw his world as it had been before the betrayal. Cities of living crystal nestled in mountain valleys, dragons in both forms working together to create art and technology beyond human imagination. She experienced the joy of flight, the ecstasy of soaring through aurora-painted skies, the deep satisfaction of shapeshifting between forms as naturally as breathing. But more than that, she felt his love for her, pure and overwhelming in its intensity. 3 centuries of loneliness and despair melted away in the face of her acceptance, replaced by hope and joy so profound it brought tears to her transformed eyes. "My beloved," Draconis whispered, his mental voice thick with emotion. "My heart, my soul, my reason for existing." The transformation accelerated. Celeste's partially changed form shifted and flowed like liquid starlight until she stood before him in her complete dragon shape. Her scales were midnight blue, shot through with veins of silver, and her wings sparkled with patterns that mirrored the constellations. She was smaller than Draconis, but no less magnificent, a perfect complement to his emerald and gold majesty. "You are beautiful beyond words," he said, moving closer until their great heads touched. The contact sent shockwaves of pure bliss through both of them. "I can feel everything you feel," she marveled, their minds now so completely linked that individual thoughts blended together. "Your memories, your dreams, your love for me. It's incredible. And I can feel your courage, your compassion, your determination to see justice done. You have made me complete, Celeste. You have given me back my soul." The tender moment was shattered by the arrival of Director Blackstone's reinforcements. Dozens of guards in full combat armor poured into Section 7, weapons charged and ready. Behind them came Dr. Valencia, with a team of scientists carrying equipment that hummed with dangerous energy. "Containment Protocol 7, Blackstone ordered. Neural disruptors at maximum power. Separate them, and we can regain control." "You understand nothing," Draconis said, his mental voice reaching every person in the room. "The bond between us cannot be severed by your crude technology. We are one being now, 2 halves of a single soul." As if to prove his point, both dragons began to glow with inner fire. The neural disruptors that the guards activated had no effect whatsoever. Instead, the weapons overloaded and exploded, sending the soldiers scrambling for cover. "Possible." Dr. Valencia gasped. The separation field should work on any telepathic connection. "Perhaps," Celeste said, her voice now carrying the same mental resonance as Draconis, "'cause what we share isn't telepathy at all. It's love, and love cannot be contained or controlled." With their bond complete, both dragons found they could access abilities that had been dormant or suppressed. Draconis discovered that his shape-shifting powers had returned in full, no longer blocked by the facility's dampening fields. Celeste found she could instinctively access knowledge and skills from his centuries of experience. "We need to leave," she said, sensing more security forces approaching from multiple directions. "But we can't just abandon everyone else there." Holding here, Dracona's eyes blazed with approval at her compassion. Even in her moment of triumph, she thought of others who might be suffering. It was one of the qualities that had drawn him to her from the beginning. "The other containment units," he agreed. "How many beings are imprisoned here against their will?" Through their enhanced senses, they could perceive the entire facility. In Section 3, a crystalline entity from the Vega system sang mournfully, in frequencies human ears couldn't detect. Section 5 held a family of small, furry creatures from a world in the Centauri cluster, huddled together in fear. Section 9 contained something that pulsed with bioluminescent patterns, trying desperately to communicate through colors and light. "All of them," Celeste said, her heart breaking for the imprisoned beings. "We have to free them all." Together, Draconis agreed. Moving as one, the two dragons began to systematically destroy every containment unit in the facility. Their combined fire was hot enough to melt the strongest barriers, their claws sharp enough to shred reinforced metal like paper. But they were careful, precise in their destruction, ensuring that no harm came to the beings they were liberating. The crystalline entity's song shifted to one of joy as it emerged from its prison. The furry family chittered excitedly, their young ones playfully chasing the sparkles of energy that fell from the dragon's scales. The bioluminescent being pulsed in what could only be gratitude, its colors shifting through patterns that spoke of deep emotion. "My heart, my soul, my reason for existing." The transformation accelerated. Celeste's partially changed form shifted and flowed like liquid starlight until she stood before him in her complete dragon shape. Her scales were midnight blue shot, through with veins of silver, and her wings sparkled with patterns that mirrored the constellations. She was smaller than Draconis, but no less magnificent, a perfect complement to his emerald and gold majesty. "You are beautiful beyond words," he said, moving closer until their great heads touched. The contact sent shockwaves of pure bliss through both of them. "I can feel everything you feel," she marveled, their minds now so completely linked that individual thoughts blended together. "Your memories, your dreams, your love for me, it's incredible. And I can feel your courage, your compassion, your determination to see justice done. You have made me complete, Celeste. You've given me back my soul." The tender moment was shattered by the arrival of Director Blackstone's reinforcements. Dozens of guards in full combat armor poured into Section 7, weapons charged and ready. Behind them came Dr. Valencia, with a team of scientists carrying equipment that hummed with dangerous energy. "Containment Protocol 7, Blackstone ordered. Neural disruptors at maximum power. Separate them, and we can regain control." "You understand nothing," Draconis said, his mental voice reaching every person in the room. "The bond between us cannot be severed by your crude technology. We are one being now, two halves of a single soul." As if to prove his point, both dragons began to glow with inner fire. The neural disruptors that the guards activated had no effect whatsoever. Instead, the weapons overloaded and exploded, sending the soldiers scrambling for cover. "Impossible," Dr. Valencia gasped. "The separation field should work on any telepathic connection." "Perhaps," Celeste said, her voice now carrying the same mental resonance as Draconis, "because what we share isn't telepathy at all. It's love, and love cannot be contained or controlled." With their bond complete, both dragons found they could access abilities that had been dormant or suppressed. Draconis discovered that his shape-shifting powers had returned in full, no longer blocked by the facility's dampening fields. Celeste found she could instinctively access knowledge and skills from his centuries of experience. "We need to leave," she said, sensing more security forces approaching from multiple directions. "No, but we can't just abandon everyone else there." Holding here, Draconis' eyes blazed with approval at her compassion. Even in her moment of triumph, she thought of others who might be suffering. It was one of the qualities that had drawn him to her from the beginning. The other containment units, he agreed. How many beings are imprisoned here against their will? Through their enhanced senses, they could perceive the entire facility. In Section 3, a crystalline entity from the Vega system sang mournfully, in frequencies human ears couldn't detect. Section 5 held a family of small, furry creatures from a world in the Centauri cluster, huddled together in fear. Section 9 contained something that pulsed with bioluminescent patterns, trying desperately to communicate through colors and light. All of them, Celeste said, her heart breaking for the imprisoned beings. We have to free them all. Together, Draconis agreed. Moving as one, the two dragons began to systematically destroy every containment unit in the facility. Their combined fire was hot enough to melt the strongest barriers, their claws sharp enough to shred reinforced metal like paper. But they were careful, precise in their destruction, ensuring that no harm came to the beings they were liberating. The crystalline entity's song shifted to one of joy as it emerged from its prison. The furry family chittered excitedly, their young ones playfully chasing the sparkles of energy that fell from the dragon's scales. The bioluminescent being pulsed in what could only be gratitude, its colors shifting through patterns that spoke of deep emotion. You've doomed us all. Director Blackstone screamed over the chaos. These creatures are dangerous. They'll destroy everything. The only dangerous creature here, Draconis replied, his mental voice cold with centuries of suppressed anger, is you. These beings came to your world in peace or were taken from their homes by force. All they wanted was to return to their families. That's exactly what they're going to do, Celeste added. Working together, the two dragons began to carve a path toward the facility's main hangar, where they could sense several small spacecraft capable of interstellar travel. The other liberated beings followed, instinctively recognizing Celeste and Draconis as protectors. But their escape was not without opposition. The facility's automated defense systems activated, filling the corridors with energy barriers and weapon turrets, however. The obstacles that would have been insurmountable for individual escapees posed little challenge to two dragons working in perfect harmony. As they reached the hangar, Draconis made a discovery that filled him with fierce joy. Among the confiscated ships was a sleek vessel he recognized immediately. My personal transport, he explained to Celeste as they helped the other beings. Board various spacecraft. I arrived in it 3 centuries ago. That it still exists and remains functional speaks to the arrogance of your people. They kept it as a trophy. Then it's fitting that we use it to leave, she replied. The ship. It was beautiful, its hull seeming to be grown rather than constructed, with organic curves that suggested both dragon anatomy and stellar phenomena. As Draconis placed his clawed hand on the biometric scanner, the vessel hummed to life, welcoming its master home after centuries of waiting. Where will we go? Celeste asked, as they settled into the ship's spacious cockpit, the viewports. They could see the other liberated beings successfully launching their own vessels, heading for the stars and home. Wherever we choose, Draconis replied, his mental voice warm with possibilities. The galaxy is vast, and we have eternity too. Explore it together. But first, I think we should visit my homeworld. My people believed me dead for 3 centuries. It's time they learned the truth. As their ship lifted off, leaving the Stellar Research Institute far below, Celeste felt a profound sense of completion. She had left behind her old life, her human limitations, her mundane existence, but she had gained something infinitely more precious. She had found her soulmate, her true purpose, and a love that would last for millennia. I love you, Draconis Thornwick, she said, her mental voice intertwining with his until they spoke as one being. And I love you, Celeste Ravenwood, he replied, my heart, my soul, my eternal companion among the stars. Below them, Director Blackstone stood in the ruins of his facility, watching the ships disappear into the night sky. His life's work lay in ashes around him, his precious specimens freed, his reputation destroyed. But even in his fury, he couldn't deny what he had witnessed. Love had triumphed over imprisonment. Compassion had overcome cruelty. The souls meant to be together had found each other across the vast gulf between species, proving that some bonds are stronger than any barrier mortals can devise. In the depths of space, aboard a ship that sailed between the stars, two dragons flew toward a new dawn.
Oh.
Their love story would become legend, inspiring others to believe that even in the darkest circumstances, hope and love could light the way to freedom. And they lived, loved, and soared together among the stars, forever and always. Two hearts beating as one across the infinite cosmos,